my right, Chase Griffin. To my left, Ted Yashin. I have everybody who's taking classes with me know that I like icebreakers. So I have one serious icebreaker, you're already cracking up. One serious icebreaker and one more serious icebreaker. I'm going to start with the serious one. All right, so Ted, what is one word you would use to describe the current NIL landscape? One word. And you can change
Profitable?
It. Profitable, okay. Chase, one word.
Prerequisite.
Prerequisite. Prerequisite, all right. More serious icebreaker. Ready? What do you think of the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce romance?
I'm thankful that now Travis Kelce is, people know who he is.
He's on the map now, right? Yeah.
That's how I.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Travis made a good business decision.
Yeah. Okay.
Someone asked me.
Does it help his brand?
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is about talent and brand partnerships up here.
Yeah.
So it was someone asked me if it was a play for, I don't even know her name, sings it now, but the new anthem on, was it, yes, if Taylor was going for that, for the next anthem, yes.
I hope it's a little bit of both, but they both winning, so it's good.
All right. Thank you guys for the icebreakers. Okay, so, in this session, we're exploring NIL more deeply from the perspective of brands, from students. We have Chase Griffin over here, who was a quarterback on our football team. When he was 13, ESPN coined him the quarterback most likely to succeed. They did not know at the time that his success would be in NIL. So I'm going to start with Chase. Chase, if you can tell everybody your NIL story and sort of how that's changed in the last 2 years, how you approach the subject. That would be great. And a little bit about yourself. Oh, Chase is also an NLS student in our law school. So, applause. Thank you.
When I got to UCLA in 2019, I had already had some experience with brands. My senior year, I was the Gatorade Player of the Year, Ford Tough Player of the Year in the state of Texas. And so I had experience doing those events, doing those press releases. And furthermore, I came to UCLA with probably around 100 hours of media training, just because I went to Hutto High School, and it's a one-horse town outside of Austin, Texas. And if everyone in this room has seen Friday Night Lights, it was truly that environment. And every single Friday after the game, I'll do basically post-game press conference. During the week, we had a local radio show. I was on it. I was a guest there probably 5 or 6 times throughout the season. And furthermore, 7-on-7 tournaments, getting pulled out of class, I was doing interviews a lot. And so when I got to UCLA, I had good brand building expertise, and I chose UCLA over Harvard. And I said, I don't want to look like a fool not choosing Harvard, so I have to maximize the UCLA network. And so I got my undergrad in public affairs in 2.5 years. Just finished my master's in education this spring, started MLS master's at the law school. And throughout that time, I was also on the BAC, which is Student Athletic Council, and I was UCLA's male rep to the Student Athletic Leadership Team and Pac-12 Council. And I was just trying to do everything right on and off the field, and also the season before NIL came to be, I had the highest passer rating in the Pac-12. So both on the field and off the field, was sort of maximizing every opportunity I had. Once brands, were able to reach out to us, I already had a pretty good following on Instagram, had a really good following on LinkedIn, especially the people I was connected with. And I was doing a good job of cataloging a clean brand that when brands wanted to work with an 18, 19, or 20-year-old for the first time, they felt like it was a safe bet, and I had good on-camera training to be able to deliver whatever content needs they needed.
Thank you for that. And Ted, you're no stranger to the space either, with almost 20 years of experience at Wasserman, but obviously NIL is new for your field, so can you tell us a little bit about your background in Drew?
Yeah, my background, first of all, thanks for having me. I wore my blue blazer. I left my card on a red blazer at home in the closet. Thanks for having me.
It's because Harvard's number 2 in entertainment law. Yeah, UCLA.
Well, I actually Googled. I Googled USC. Is it burgundy or maroon? And it's cardinal. So I left my cardinal blazer. But thanks for having me. No, I really appreciate being here. Casey Wasserman who is our chairman, he tells the story that I stalked him in the men's bathroom of the Arena Football League office. I tell the story that I stalked him in the National Coliseum, so it really depends on which version of the stalk you want to believe. But I'm a grizzled vet. I started with Wasserman almost 20 years ago with the Avengers, the Arena football team. I have to shout out Marielle, my longtime colleague in the past with the Avengers. But fast forward, I started off selling tickets for the Avengers. I graduated to corporate sales for the Avengers, and I shifted to the talent marketing business in 2009. Russell Westbrook was my first client to do talent marketing with, and today I help oversee Washington's talent marketing business and negotiate endorsement deals, sponsorships, partnerships, marketing opportunities, revenue generating opportunities for the talent that Washington represents, and now, of course, NIL clients as well.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course.
So I have a set of questions that I'm going to ask both of you because obviously, well, and a little bit about me. So the reason I'm up here moderating is because Terry wants it. I'm just kidding.
You're doing great.
She's not stressed. No, we have a brand new class at the law school. It's called Talent and Brand Partnerships. And it's an opportunity, a lot of our audience today is from the law school. It's an opportunity for us to train law students to understand how to work with talent. In this case, it's student athletes and other undergraduates that are in the band and on the dance team and the cheer squad, and give them advice and counsel for their endorsement deals, right? And the other half of that is called brand partnerships. So I have on one side of me talent, on the other side brand partnerships. So I'm going to ask you guys the same questions and sort of see how you approach it from different sides. Because this is a room full of mostly students, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. Let's have a discussion. This isn't an informational panel so much as a conversation that we want to start in this space, especially because UCLA has a terrific law school, business school, athletics department, and it's only at a place like this that we can do a conversation like this. So let's take advantage. So my first question, I'll have Chase answer first. What factors do you take into consideration when you determine which brands to work with in the AI space?
So I have a value system that I think I'll probably always try to live by, just because of the way I was raised and my position being the eldest in the family and wanting to set a good example for my siblings. When it comes down to personal values, I consider myself a believer, a winner, and a provider, and I look for brands that sort of mimic those same values and whatever their code of conduct is. And then from there, I look at the economic value of the deal. Is it on par with my own market price? Is it something that's worthwhile the time, energy, and focus that I'll apply if I accept that offer? And then third is community value and empowerment. So that's where my foundation sort of kicks in. That's where finding brands who are willing to either add to my own foundation or match what I'm giving to my foundation, and them contributing to the causes that I'm near and dear to. And by finding brands who are committed to the same things that I'm committed with throughout the entire process, there's alignment. Whether it be the creative brief, whether it be the shot list and get that approved, whether it be post, when to post, the sort of story and PR surrounding the post, and then afterwards, what do we do with the proceeds of revenue that's generated by the advertisement? And a cause that's near and dear to me is the LA Regional Food Bank. A lot of my teammates in high school, their families struggled with food insecurity, and without those teammates, I wouldn't be here living out my dream. And so finding LA Regional Food Bank, who is an expert in solving that issue, has been a great partner, and I think brands know what they're getting from start to finish when working with me. And for brands that are committed to those similar causes, then they deliver on all of their KPIs going forward throughout the deals with me.
Excellent. So what I'm hearing from you is that when you choose brands, it's a very personal decision. It has to do with your brand values, not what your teammates want, not what the community wants. Is that accurate?
It's name, image, and likeness. And I only have one of them. Your brand is everything in the marketing space. And so I'm very selective about who I work with and sort of the process of working with brands. There are some brands that I would love to work with, but if there's not an agreement on any one of the three pillars that I have, then, next time.
It's perfect segue into Ted. I mean, from your side, how do you decide which athletes to work with, and what are your core values?
Well, and first off, I just want to take a second to applaud Chase because, not a lot of talent, really focus on the community aspect of marketing and, the collective check and not demand to give back to the community. So, I think Chase is very special when it comes to that, and I just want to take a second to applaud that. As someone in my position, it's very refreshing to see talent really care about the community. So I applaud that. Well done. Yeah, that's absolutely worth a round of applause there. But so, and Chase kind of touched on it. I would say there's like a reactive and a proactive approach, right? When we're proactive, we get to know our talent, we get to know our clients, we get to know what they're passionate about, whether it's NIL or professional, and then we try to cater to how they can help brands, right? So brands have goals and objectives, and our job is a very simple job to create these opportunities to help brands meet and exceed their goals and objectives, right? So that's like the proactive approach. The reactive approach is like, the sports business nerd stuff, like figuring out where brands are spending, what market they are spending in, going after their competitors, going after, if brands are moving to a certain location using geography. There's so many different funnels, in the sales process to figure out, what opportunities make sense. But ultimately, to like what Chase touched on, brands have goals and objectives, and if your talent can help and align, then it makes for a successful partnership.
Have you noticed any sort of, I don't remember who in the last panel said through line, but have you noticed any sort of through line through your NIL deals in particular, or has that changed in the last 2 years in terms of the types of athletes that you're working with or the brands?
And what does that mean through line?
Just like a golden thread, like in intelligence disease, like a theme.
No, partnerships need to make sense. I know you and I touched on the case study with H&R Block. Like, we had a very successful deal last year with several of our talents, Sedona Prince, Raven Turner, Sarah Fuller with H&R Block. And H&R Block used a great group of women to highlight and recognize the inequity in spending against men versus women, and some of our talent were lucky enough to be in the campaign. And that's a perfect example of a partnership that makes sense, because now that these talent are getting revenue and they're getting paid for these deals, they need to understand tax laws and tax implications. So the H&R Block partnership was a very very organic way, not only to tell a good message, but use the business that H&R Block is successful in to help these athletes with their tax planning and things like that.
Well, yeah, and you bring up tax planning and also just like a lot of complex issues that a student athlete would have to wrestle with after they enter into the NIL deal. It makes me want to flip to you, Chase. Obviously, we went from zero NIL to now a big part of your portfolio is entering into these deals. How do you balance that with the demands of law school, the demands of being on the football team?
I think athletes by nature are folks who can time manage and can make the most out of the 24 hours they get in a day. Every single athlete who's at a college campus, especially a place like UCLA, has committed, between 40 and 60 hours a week already, probably from, age of 10 years old to their sport. That habit doesn't just leave once you get to UCLA, and God willing, it doesn't leave once you leave UCLA. Athletes have been proven value creators since the start of college athletics. Now we're just on the marketing side allowed to capture on some of the value that we create. And I think NIL is a good prerequisite, like I said earlier, of revenue share and getting a piece of those media rights. For me, I just had to cut out everything that doesn't really, fit coherently with what I'm trying to do with my mission. My hobby is producing music, and it's something that's also productive and that I've gotten good at, and has added to my credibility as far as being talented. I think athletes are already sort of living a lifestyle that people want to see and that their followership wants to be able to connect to, and the athletes who are best at capturing what that life is like and delivering it to their followers in a way that's authentic to them on a consistent basis are folks that can deliver for brands.
And this isn't quite an NIL story, but more of a chase story. Where do you see the pieces of these experiences fitting together? What's your next step?
So I have this season and then one more season, if I would choose to take it. Until the dream is dead, I want to play in the NFL and play professionally. Off the field, I love music, I'm getting good at it. Artists that I want to work with, other producers that I want to work with. And then throughout this branded process, I've taken a lot of deals in production budgets, all the way from the creative directive, all the way through Shabbos, through filming, both talent and line producing, and post-production. And so being able to take that same model, same skill set of creating content that generates value, I want to take into more traditional spaces, like unscripted, so hosting and producing TV shows, and then acting, voice acting, and producing film and TV.
Now, Ted, I asked Chase about some of the challenges of balancing NIL and his regular schedule. And what I'm hearing is, I'm an athlete, it's not challenging.
It's definitely challenging. But you gotta stay focused.
Because you have the talent. I mean, compared to non-NIL deals or in general, what are some of the challenges that you see on the talent and agency side?
Well, I think brands have a lot of options when it comes to essentially advertising, right? So that to me is at the forefront when I hear challenges. I think of, just the options that brands have, right? So there's many different ways to spend their advertising dollars. Why are they using talent as a way to help them, right? So that's the biggest challenge. I think there's just a ton of options out there.
So it's like analysis paralysis. There's just so much out there you don't know what to do.
There's so much, they can spend their money. And then not only are there different options, but there's different talent, right? Like, why is this person better to work with than this person, and so on and so forth. So, there's a lot of professional athletes and now NIL athletes that deserve deals. What separates the pack, and that, that's the question.
So what are in your opinion then some examples of positive factors that have created like a win-win situation with college athletes?
Well, I guess to start, I almost want to start with like some of the negative,
Okay.
right? And when I think of our talent, like we represent Kagan Ohashi, or UCLA, gymnast, right? Like I think I looked last night, it was 240 million views on their YouTube. On that viral thing, like of course she didn't benefit a penny. We represent Sarah Fuller, who became the first woman to play in a Power 5 conference and smashed gender barriers when it comes to football. Immediately after, Vanderbilt got $6 million worth of donations in her name. $6 million worth of donations in her name. And of course, she didn't see a penny of it. And I'm not, trying to bash the system, but my point is like, looking back on it, she missed a lot of revenue generating opportunities, along with there's 1,000 other stories that we can, kind of highlight. And so I'm an advocate of NIL. I'm glad that these athletes are able to earn. So yeah. I think I missed the question, but
Well, I asked about positives.
positive.
Maybe
Such a different gallery.
That's okay. We'll just turn to Chase again.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about the H&R Block deal. That was a positive one. And I mean, look, Sedona Prince, is one of our clients. She exposed the NCAA inequities around, workout facilities in March Madness a few years ago, and that really, that was the spark to her light, and some people can take that spark and be done with it and have it 15 minutes, and Sedona took it, ran with it, and now she, her future is really bright. She can be a professional athlete, she can be an influencer, she can be a broadcaster. There's so many different options, and I think that's a really good example of someone like leveraging her moment into bigger and greater things, and those are some good ones.
So, do you have anything to add to that?
Definitely. Well, just also special shout out to Sedona for fighting the good fight on the legal side as well. Her, along with the folks that she's working with, are vital to generating more equity into this college sports landscape. So salute to her. I think in general, athletes who are performing well and are reaching the goals that they want to reach on the NIL side, and this is for the athletes, but also for the folks in this room who are going to be working with athletes, are finding ways to authentically capture who they are. Whenever my teammates ask me how to get into NIL, I realize that some of them may not have as much gamer experience, as much production experience as me, but all of them have a skill set or a talent. And obviously for my teammates, football is one of them, but there's guys on the team that can draw really well. Nobody knows. It's really about highlighting what's true to you and what you excel at and the value that you're able to create, and showcasing that not only to your followers, but the brands that you'll work with. And I think there's something really beautiful about that, because in college, it is about finding yourself. It is about finding what you have a value to give to others. And being able to practice that in college and monetize that is something that's new to athletes. And when you look at all the horrifying stories of athletes who were amazing athletes in college and they went professional, had good careers, and afterward they're literally depressed because they don't know what to do. It's because they've never been given the opportunity to practice something and showcase something of value outside of their sport. Now that we have that opportunity, I think you'll see a lot more success stories of athletes after their sport, after college. And while we're here, we're able to contribute more to the on-campus business landscapes.
And I hear from what you're saying a lot of the themes that we've heard earlier in this conference, right? Like, we just went to the Kingfish panel. We talked about empowerment. We talked about pivoting, right? When things are going one way and you have to shift directions, that's an example of an athlete who's used to a certain career who might change. And the other thing that I think is really important in terms of empowerment, again, to echo Heather's point about community empowerment, right? You're not in this alone. Like, college athletes are not in this process alone. You can learn from your peers. You can lean on the resources that your department offers. Martin talked about during his talk, the Westwood Exchange, that's a brand new feature at the athletic department, coupling brands with athletes, right? So you're either a Chase who comes in with tons of media training and you're strong out the gate, or you're curious and you lean on your community and you learn about the resources that your university provides, and you work that way to discover yourself. So I do think that there's a lot of empowerment there as well.
I mean, I think athletes, we chose, like I chose UCLA for a reason. And the same way that I chose UCLA, UCLA chose me. And I think the schools going forward that do their best on providing those types of services for their athletes, especially on the content and production side, are going to reap the rewards, especially once revenue share comes and there's a higher impetus as far as adding value on the production side. It's really unsustainable the way a lot of collectives are set up as far as being, payments from donors to the kids, because when revenue share comes, it's going to be hard to outspend what the athletic department can give to an athlete. But if the collective is focusing on the production side and generating value that way and working with the school and finding ways to build skill set as well as adding real opportunities for these athletes, I think you'll see that harmony going forward, not only, to create better athletes and be able to recruit better athletes, but to deliver on the full-scale service that I think schools owe to the athletes that they have commitments to.
Good point. Do we have, I feel like we're running out of time just because this is a short panel. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes.
Hey, just a question, just in terms of the student or college athlete. I guess my question to Chase is, how do you feel about the term student athlete, college athlete, and ultimately, what do you foresee happening once revenue sharing comes about?
So I was taught about the term student athlete by DeMaurice Smith from the NFLPA, and it was really interesting. It was a way for the NCAA to get out of a workman's comp debt back in the early 1900s, and that term has been used over and over again on the legal side to basically exclude college athletes as the only talent group that's not paid a large portion of the revenue that they create in all of the entertainment business.
I would say the other students aren't paid either.
Definitely.
So,
But they did have the opportunity to monetize their name and its likeness.
That's lawyer talk. She's a lawyer.
I'm just presenting all sides.
True. But for the students that were creating, that type of value, they were able to capitalize on it. College athletes with the NCAA versus Alston case, there was a huge shift where basically there was a literal unanimous 9-0 decision, and you're the law expert up here. How common are 9-0 decisions in this day and age right now? Exactly.
Okay, well.
So it was a unanimous decision basically saying the way that the NCAA is set up violates antitrust laws. Because of that, NIL came into play, and now revenue share is on its way. So I think within 3 to 5 years, and that's part of what Sonoma Prince is working on with the House case, athletes will be receiving annual payment from schools that is literally mandated by the federal government. And they'll be able to capture on these billions of dollars of media rights deals that are being signed right now. And I think once athletes are brought into that fold and are actually incentivized to grow the pie for everyone else is going to have a larger draw. If 90,000 people show up at the Rose Bowl or 45,000 people show up at the Rose Bowl, athletes' payments are not changing at all. In 3 to 5 years, once athletes receive a piece of the market share, athletes are going to be incentivized to get 90,000 people there every single game, which grows the pie for everybody.
I do think that's, I think that's, just again, to sort of like even out the viewpoints, like that is one, and I'm not arguing against you or for you, I'm just laying out sort of the arguments, like that's one view of what might happen, and there are other views that, student athletes will remain students, and they shouldn't be classified as employees or get a revenue share for reasons that are sort of, outside of, so that they're not classified as employees because they're still students.
Right. Well, I agree that college athletes can be paid more without being classified as employees. We already receive a stipend. We already receive an Alston payment. If instead of $1,500 a month, if athletes were paid $9,000 a month based off the same model, exact same model, nothing else changing other than being able to take more money from that media revenue pool, then it wouldn't change their classification of being college athletes, and it would give them the percentage that they're owed. And that's what this House case has decided in virtually every single court case up to this point, including the Supreme Court case, has set a precedent ruling against the NCAA and on the side of athletes because there's no other industry in entertainment that is this skewed.
Say it louder.
So let's say revenue share happened, which has been needed for some time, but so let's say the revenue share happens. Will schools have almost like, let's say, a salary cap, meaning, or will it be almost like a juiced up stipend where instead of 1,500, it's 9,000. You then take 5% of the deal, spread it among schools, and then based on scholarship athletes, would you divide it, or would teams kind of salary cap it?
I think it'd be similar to the latter that you said, so juiced up stipend, just because that mimics the payment style now, and it wouldn't reclassify college athletes as employees, but it would also give them access to the economic market share that the House case is deciding on whether or not they're owed.
And again, I think, that's just, it's just one way of thinking about the potential economic shifts that might happen in this landscape. It's not an inevitability, it's not an but it's really hard to tell at this moment in time, I think, what's actually going to happen. And I say that, again, not to disagree with you, but just to say that at least within the space of the school, we're just here to see what happens and then provide a set of resources for the students in response, right? So, the NIL, taking no position on whether student athletes should have gotten NIL rights or not, right? Once they did, the school stepped in and provided a set of resources to provide that support, right? Not knowing where the next step is going to be for student athletes with respect to media rights or revenue share or anything like that, the school will naturally be responsive. And I think that's important to remember because, one thing is a prediction and a hope, and then one thing is sort of, what's actually happening within the space of a certain set of regulations and responses and, conference mandates.
Absolutely, I agree. I think UCLA's approach to NIL has paid dividends, not really taking a preemptive position on it. And, I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist, and I recognize the trend of cases already. And there is going to be a shift towards more equity. I think the point now is how stark is that shift. And I think once that decision is made, I love UCLA, and God willing, we, like how we handled NIL, are able to shift into a position where we're able to accommodate athletes in a way where we feel supported and are able to create the most economic value for everyone involved.
Excellent. Any other questions?
I'm sure you're familiar with the case of Jaden Rashada, the high school quarterback whose NIL deals kind of led him to being at a different school. And what's your opinions on some of the maybe downsides or people who point to a case like that and say, oh, with collectives and now leading to sort of shady business deals, how that affects an athlete coming out of high school?
I think it just highlights the importance of schools maintaining relationships with collectives that are built to create value for the athletes first and foremost. And that's not just a position that's beneficial to the athlete, but now if I'm a recruit and I'm on a visit at Florida, in the back of my head, if they're telling me money I'm going to get, experience I'm going to have, I'm not really going to be as trustworthy as I was before the collective literally, did that on paying an athlete $1 million. So I think it's not only in the athlete's best interest, but the school's best interest to maintain relationships with collectives and entities that have a good track record of being organized to create value for the athletes first and foremost. It protects the school's brand, which I think is, first and foremost should be top of mind for anyone in the school's administration.
Yeah, no, definitely. You can't, you hear all these horror stories of collectives that are doing things that are orthogonal to what the NCAA is allowing, right? And these things don't seem to get caught. And that's really all it is. It's like crossing the street when there's red light. You're not supposed to be doing it all the time, but people get away with it, right? And so I totally agree. You know, you want to just make sure that anything that the school does or that student athletes do or that collectives do are in line with the policies that are out there. All right. Well, excellent. I think that's time. Chase is here. You can answer any questions if you want. Ted is here. Thank you so much for being our guest. Thank you.